Since LEGO stopped giving us more Luke Landspeeder sets, which I'm still expecting them to release another one soon, they've had to look at remaking other sets. And a lot of vehicles in Star Wars now have multiple sizes, but very few as many as the Slave One. And we're kicking this video off with the Advent Calendar Slave One. I can't remember exactly which Advent Calendar this comes from, but the Slave One itself in both Jango and Boba colors had shown up a few times in this tiny little form. And also, I do believe there exists somewhere a keyring, but I couldn't find it on most LEGO websites. So I think the archives might be incomplete, but it's a really simple build. I tried to recolor this as well to match up to the white as opposed to light bluish grey that LEGO have used for the UCS version. We're going to look at that at the end, but it doesn't look too good. So the only improvement I can say for this Advent sized Slave One is replacing that 1x2 tile with an ingot, which looks so much better. I'm not sure it's even a piece that they had to do at the time, and I just really like this build. We've recently taken a look at this year's Advent Calendar as well. Go check out that video. But the only build that really compares to the size of this is the yellow mug table. So if you don't own this Advent Slave One, very easy to part out. At least you know roughly the size. Or will do when that set comes out September 1st. Stay tuned for the live stream as well, where we look over all September sets. The next size of Slave One is probably about double the size, honestly. Yeah, it's about double the size of the Advent, and it's the very first set we reviewed here on the channel with a little recolor for Jango. So the Microfighter still holds up to today. Actually, I don't think there's anything I would change about this Microfighter besides like the little bits I already have as part of the recolor. We've got a load of the dark blue around, none of the green or any of like the yellow details, none of that, because it is a Microfighter, which means it's not as detailed as our next jump. And now we're starting to get towards some of the good sets. In fact, this is the brand new August 1st Slave One with a few modifications. First off, if you did watch the stream, and you can go back, check it out on demand, we did replace one of the elements with parts that were easier to find, just in case you did want to part it out. And we fixed a few things with this. The first thing we fixed was on the back of the Slave One. Whilst you're building it, I wouldn't say go back and try to add this after you've already built it, because that is a very long and lengthy process. But if you are still yet to build your Slave One, I'd recommend adding a pin connector over the axle, just so when the handle is shut, if you do press on it, you're then not stopping these ears or wings from spinning around. And also, this is the first size where the back of the Slave One starts to look like the head of Yang from Clone Wars and Ahsoka. The second modification is also to do with the handle. We removed a pin and ball joint piece, which means the handle can now go all the way up, so that when us adults are playing around with the Slave One and swooshing it, we don't get in the way of the play feature. That was anticlimactic. I don't have any of the seismic charges in here. The play feature for this set is so fun. What you do is you lift up the ramp, just like any other Slave One playset, nearly any other Slave One playset. No, every other Slave One playset, and then you load it with up to 2 seismic charges, which are represented with minifigure heads, which is kind of barbaric. And then you press the button on the front to open this secret trapdoor on the back of the Slave One, launching one or both of the seismic charges. You can't choose to deploy them separately, so if you put 2 in, you're going to get 2 out, and just make sure you find out where they're going. The other change we made was right at the front here, swapping 1x2 brackets. Some of the I'll have the piece up on screen. It's easier than me trying to explain it. We swapped those out for 1x1x5 plate tool snot bricks. Again, it's this piece on screen. And the reason we did that was so the cockpit actually lines up with the body of the ship. You don't really have to change much else. There is a 2x2 tile in place of this piece. Lego pieces are so hard to explain now, but this lines up with the torso of the ship. It's still just as easy to open and shut. You're not rubbing against any Lego bricks because the cockpit is slightly bigger than the shape of the rounded off nose, which we use to our advantage. And I think this is the biggest upgrade of them all. Most people aren't going to worry about the carry handle because the side build that comes with this very good looking Slave One, I don't think I've complimented it yet. It does look very nice. And if I didn't have the UCS version, I think I'd choose this over the next one. But the play set, the side build we get with this play set is this Camino Slug. We're going to call it the Camino Slug. If people can call the Salvage a boo and the 8080 a dog, this is the Camino Slug. And I say that because it's got the two antennas sticking up and there's not really much else to the back. There's a few clips perhaps for Jango's Westar pistols and some bar elements that really confuse me. Maybe that's so people can hold on to the side because there's only room for one Camino at the front and maybe another one in the back. But what this does is if you lift it up by the white tiles on the back end of it, they go straight into the back of the Slave One. They don't lock in, but there is quite a bit of room to sit them. And the base of the Slave One stands on the bottom. And the fact that I'm holding this up just shows how secure this base is. It feels a bit like the UCS set when you're trying to place it on the base, but it's good enough to leave standing, even next to a 3D printer that shakes that shelf quite a bit. Wobble, 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 wobble. But this is only halfway through the video. We've already looked at 3 Slave Ones, and like I said, that one is my second favorite. The next step up is the bigger playset. So we're taking a look back to 2019's anniversary Slave One with a recolor for Jango Fett, because originally that set was for Boba. We do get a carry handle on this one that is a bit more secure and definitely fits adult hands a bit better. In fact, it sticks out a little bit past my hand. We do have the rotating wings this time, which aren't turned manually and are affected by gravity, which are only a little bit bigger than the smaller playset. We also have some turrets that do spin round separately, and this is the first time we get turrets that can actually move on a Slave One. We have enough space back here for the giant Harning Carbonite, which Jango doesn't need, but I'm sure there's some other stowaways we can put in. And though there's only one seat in the cockpit, we have taken a look at it before, and it can be modified to fit Jango, Boba, and a passenger, perhaps like Aura Singh or Cad Bane or another one of the bounty hunters inside the cockpit without too many modifications. And that does stop the cockpit from rotating. But whilst this cockpit rotates, the actual Slave One isn't supposed to do that, because the rotating mechanism we'll take a look at in just a second where that goes is a bit lower down than the actual cockpit of the ship, and it's treated more like an aircraft, more like a NASA rocket, where the astronauts are laying back until they lift off, in which way the entire ship rotates rather than just the cockpit. But as a playset scout, I'm happy I've recolored it. Since I did do the recolor, I've swapped out the light green for a nice sand green on the bottom here, and I think this looks pretty good. But there is still one more step, and this Slave One is the ultimate set. I don't see Lego doing any bigger than this anytime soon. I mean, maybe one day we'll have $1,000 Slave One, but we're talking decades into the future. I think for now, this is the biggest we're going to get, and this is to scale with our minifigure scale Kenobi Delta. This is 145 minifigure scale, which scales up to the height of minifigs, you guessed it, being 180 centimeters in life-size form, 45 times taller than they are. And there is so much to say about this ship, but I'm going to start off with my favorite play feature, and that is the ramp. In fact, let's reset it so you can see the door open up. It doesn't seem to be opening up as far as it should. There's definitely something caught in there, but as you can see, the door does open up a little bit. I wonder what is caught. I heard something rattle. There is definitely something caught in there, but what it's meant to do is open up the entire way. The ramp goes fully down and the door goes up flush with the top. I'll play a clip of when we actually built it. There you go. And open it. You can see his head bonks on the door, bonk, as it opens. And this is a reference not only to Attack of the Clones. Oh, this is absolutely perfect. My favorite feature of the set. Let's get a close-up of that. Bonk. It was such a fun play feature, and it's still my favorite part of the set. So I'm going to have to try and fix whatever's stuck inside. But besides that, we also have the Hyang looking back. And I forgot to show you the last playset. I don't think this is going to stand up on its own. There we go. So here's the two last play sets. That one looks like a Dying Hyang, and I've also added that plate on the bottom of it, this 6x8 plate, to make it stand up on its own, because that playset didn't come with any stand. If LEGO were to make that today, they'd definitely include some little Technic stand with it, or at least I hope they would, so that you can display it standing up just like this one. The back is so detailed. We get a little Hyang mouth down here. It looks a little more accurate when you put up the wings. They do have plates on them which stop them rotating any more than that, and there's a little Technic in the inside which stops these plates from crushing the rest of the build. But right in the middle, we have ourselves a stickered element, and the stickers for this aren't great because they have stickered a conical piece, so they still keep falling off weeks after this thing was built. But the seismic charge is pretty cool and a lot better than using a minifigure head like the recent playset does. And not only does that go just inside like that, but we have two 4x4 plates that can close in over the top and hide it away if you don't want to show anyone else it's there. Or maybe you just want to cover up the stickers and wait till you get them printed. My favorite part on the back is actually the big dish up here, and I'm not exactly sure what it does. Maybe it's some sort of radar. I have to have a little look into that, but it's my favorite piece just because of how smooth it looks. And it does also finish off the whole Hyangness to the back. Turning the ship back around, we have a load of detail everywhere, and honestly, I'm not going to be able to cover it all in this video without redoing the entire review. So I'll leave that video linked on the end, but we have two blasters that we have flipped upside down just so they're showing off their smoother sides. And that was thanks to someone in chat when we were building it. And again, one of the only modifications we've made. There is a piece missing. If you spot where that piece is missing, or if you were in the recent Slave One stream and you know which piece I took, let me know in the comments. But we'll pop open the cockpit, which has been modified towards the bottom just to eradicate any gaps in the stickers. And now we can see the actual part of the Slave One that's meant to rotate as opposed to the cockpit, just under here. You can get a better look by removing the entire cockpit. And we've also got this little storage in the back, which is very excited to jump out. Here we store Jango's Westar 34 pistols, the backpack, and a back to tank. And this just slots into a 4x4 plate and is held on with 2/2 of a stud. So that's a weaker connection than Bowser's Tau, but it holds on a lot better. We get a few stickered Easter eggs and named stickers all over. Well, not named stickers, but you know, really fine details that you expect from a UCS set. And even the cockpit is no exception, with 3 full seats for minifigures, which is something that we haven't seen before. And the monitors were a bit close at first, but if you move them back one stud, they're really not. Underneath the cockpit, there is room for 2 more passengers, which makes up, I think there was 6 passengers in the Slave One, or there might have been 5. This is really accurate, and you can fit 6 carbonite blocks just behind them in the prison cell, or 2 minifigures. But it does hold 6 carbonite blocks, and we're gonna let that slide as it holding 6 prisoners, which is also canonically accurate. When we put back on this very nice cockpit piece, this is all one clear element with a few bits added on. It's ready to go back on display and clips in just under these dark bluish grey Technic pieces on the back. Before it goes back, I just want to show off the display stand because we've removed Jango's plaque, which fits on a brick on the back. Definitely feel like LEGO did that on purpose if you don't want the plaque displayed on your UCS set. But we do have a 10k subs custom 3D printed plaque that I've added instead, and I will be fixing the hinges on the bottom so that they're held on with 4 studs and not the 2 that they are right now. But I think this looks really cool and adds to the fact that it's a very special set because we built it when we hit 10,000 subscribers. But you could probably tell that already. It would be a very bad idea if I was to drop this now. Let me know which of these Slave Ones is your favorite. For me, it's definitely UCS, then the Augur set, then the Microfighter recolor, then the 2019 recolor, and then last but definitely not least is the Advent Slave One. Let me know your order in the comments, and may the bricks be with you always.